여기서 교수님.
The show begins with a high school student named Cyan, a quiet boy known for being the smartest student in his class. He had a solitary personality and spent most of his time studying. Despite his brilliance, he had no friends, which only fueled the resentment from his classmates. They couldn't stand that someone so aloof was also more intelligent than any of them. No one respected Cyan, not the students, not the teachers, and yet he consistently achieved top results in all his exams. In contrast, a classmate named Young Ben was widely respected. He didn't top the class, but he was feared and admired by many. When Cyan won first place in a math competition, the room remained silent. No applause. But when Young Ben, who only placed third, received his award, the class erupted in claps and cheers. This wasn't just unfair. It was a reflection of how popularity and intimidation worked in their school. Young Ben was a known troublemaker. He led a small gang in school, bullying and extorting money from other students. Most students feared him, but Cyan was different. Despite being introverted and isolated, Cyan was never scared of Young Ben or his threats. He remained focused on his books, refusing to be intimidated. One day, while Cyan was deep in his studies, Young Ben approached and tried to threaten him, clearly jealous that Cyan had beaten him in the math competition. Cyan, however, didn't even flinch. He calmly ignored Young Ben's taunts. Meanwhile, the school's basketball team barged into the classroom, looking for a student named Suho. They were furious. Suho had beaten up one of their teammates. Even though the entire team showed up with metal rods, Suho stood his ground and defeated them all. Turns out, Suho was a former MMA fighter, which explained his incredible combat skills. Later that day, Cyan went home and showed his math competition certificate to his father. His father smiled, but Cyan didn't feel happy. Even at home, he felt lonely. He lived with his father after his parents divorced, but there was no love in that house. His father was always buried in work, and his mother, who worked as a teacher in a faraway school, could only send him video messages. Cyan missed warmth, connection, family. The next morning, Cyan arrived early to school, as usual, and noticed Suho sleeping in the classroom. That day, they had PE class, but Cyan's gym jacket was missing. He immediately suspected Young Ben and was forced to wear his school uniform for gym. PE was the one subject Cyan was weak in, and this day made it worse. After class, Cyan confronted Young Ben and his gang. He boldly told them that if Ben was really strong, he should stop using others and stand alone. Feeling insulted, the gang grabbed Cyan by the collar, ready to attack him. Just then, a teacher walked in, and the gang quickly acted like it was a joke. In their class, a new student had recently joined, Bamuk, who had transferred from an elite private school. He never admitted that he was rich because he didn't want people to take advantage of him. Later, when Cyan entered the class again, he asked Young Ben to move away from his desk. Young Ben was enraged, and Cyan pulled out a pen, ready to defend himself if needed. Suho, still trying to sleep, told the gang to shut up, clearly annoyed by their noise. That night, Young Ben and his gang went to a club where they routinely drank alcohol mixed with drugs. They met a drug dealer, who was also Young Ben's cousin. Young Ben asked him what would happen if fentanyl was applied to someone's skin. The cousin replied that it would cause dizziness, confusion, nausea, and blurred vision. The next day was exam day. Cyan had prepared thoroughly as always. Young Ben showed up late and called Bamuk aside, telling him to apply fentanyl to Cyan's neck during the test. Bamuk was terrified but reluctantly agreed. As the test began, Bamuk walked behind Cyan, touched his neck, and claimed there was a bug. Irritated but focused, Cyan ignored it. However, minutes later, his vision began to blur, and he couldn't concentrate. He rushed to the restroom and realized something was wrong. After returning to class, Cyan suddenly started slapping himself, trying to stay conscious. Everyone was shocked. After the test, Cyan noticed he got a question wrong. Enraged, he stood up, pulled out his pen, and attacked Young Ben, stabbing his friend in the face. Blood streamed as Young Ben collapsed. No one dared to stop Cyan. He was about to strike again when Suho intervened, stopping him and throwing him aside. The teacher entered moments later. Young Ben was taken to the hospital, while Cyan was called to apologize to his parents. But Cyan shocked everyone by revealing that Young Ben had poisoned him with fentanyl. Ben denied it, but Cyan presented proof. The fentanyl box was found in Ben's bag. His mother was horrified. Young Ben was transferred to another school, and the school began cracking down on drugs. That evening, Cyan didn't mention anything to his father. His father noticed some bruises but didn't care much, thinking it was typical teenage behavior. The next day, two of Young Ben's friends confronted Cyan, demanding a fight after school. Cyan calmly told them to pick a time. After school, they followed him to the restroom, where Cyan locked the door behind them. Unknown to them, Cyan had brought his favorite weapon, his pen. The boys froze in fear, remembering how violent Cyan had gotten. But Cyan didn't attack. He simply warned them, "Stay out of my business." When Cyan walked out, classmates started praising him for standing up to the gang. But Cyan was angry. They had once ignored him, and now suddenly, they wanted to be his friends. But their fake loyalty didn't last. Within days, they were treating him like he didn't exist again. Meanwhile, young Ben met with his cousin Subday, who warned him to stop acting recklessly. But Ben asked Subday to beat up Cyan, offering him money. That night, Cyan saw Suho working part-time as a food delivery guy. He'd lost both parents and lived with his grandmother. Sometimes, he even slept at school to avoid being late. Cyan, seeing his dedication, let him sleep and didn't wake him. Gradually, Cyan and Suho grew closer, although Cyan still struggled with social interaction. Young Ben later asked Subday again to hurt Cyan. Subday initially refused. Meanwhile, Bamuk apologized to Cyan for applying the drug and offered to transfer schools with him. Cyan ignored him. Suddenly, young Ben and Subday's gang appeared and kidnapped Cyan. Bamuk ran to Suho for help. Suho wasn't interested, until Bamuk offered to double his part-time salary. Suho agreed and rushed to find Cyan. Cyan, now surrounded, used his analytical mind to fight back. He injured several attackers before young Ben got to him and beat him brutally, even trying to break his arms. Just in time, Suho arrived and fought off the gang. Subday challenged him to a fight. Meanwhile, Ben tried to hit Cyan with a glass bottle, but Bamuk arrived and saved him. Eventually, Subday retreated. Ben was left humiliated. Later, Suho brought Cyan and Bamuk to the restaurant where he worked, saying they owed him help now. They shared a quiet evening together. Cyan still struggled to open up, but things were changing. Elsewhere, Subday's boss, Galasu, was furious about the failed attack. He beat Subday with a stick and refused to give him any more work. But Subday didn't stop. He told Ben to bring Cyan to him. Later, Cyan ran into a girl named Yangi from Subday's gang. She was shoplifting. Cyan ignored her, but outside, she approached him and pretended to like him. She invited him to a restaurant and even asked for his phone number. Meanwhile, Galasu continued collecting debts from students. One boy even gave up his mother's credit card. The next day, young Ben approached Cyan and asked him to testify in court, saying he wasn't responsible for the fentanyl incident. Cyan, feeling guilty, agreed. But instead of court, young Ben led them to a basement parking lot, where Galasu's gang was waiting. It was a trap. Galasu demanded $15,000, claiming it was for Subday's medical bills. Suho knew it was a lie. Galasu himself had broken Subday's arm. He gave them 3 days to bring the money, or be trapped in debt forever. This entire incident revealed just how manipulative and ruthless Gil-Su truly was in dealing with high school students. He wasn't just running a shady operation. He threatened to kill anyone who disobeyed or refused his demands. From that moment on, Cyan and his friends realized they had no other option but to follow Gil-Su's orders, completely submitting to his gang's authority in order to stay safe. Desperate to find a way out of this dangerous situation, Cyan decided to call Young E, hoping she could give him some useful information about Gil-Su or any way to escape the mess. They agreed to meet at a nearby restaurant later that day. During their meeting, Young E finally opened up and revealed the full truth about Gil-Su. She told Cyan that Gil-Su was the type of man who would do absolutely anything for money, even commit murder if the price was right. She warned him that if he wanted to survive, he should pay whatever Gil-Su demanded, no matter how outrageous it was. She also warned that Gil-Su had deep connections with dangerous criminals, making it nearly impossible for anyone to escape his grip or report him without severe consequences. Meanwhile, Bamuk, who had been racked with guilt over everything that had happened, decided to take matters into his own hands. In a desperate attempt to help pay off the debt, he stole his father's expensive watch, one of the most valuable things he owned, and planned to sell it to raise the $15,000 that Gil-Su was demanding. Eventually, the 3-day deadline given by Gil-Su arrived. The group, Cyan, Suho, and Bamuk, met in a secluded room where Bamuk handed over the full $15,000 in cash after selling the watch. However, he lied to Cyan and Suho, claiming that his father had willingly given him the money. Both Cyan and Suho were furious. They couldn't believe Bamuk's story and doubted that any father would simply hand over such a large sum to cover his son's shady debts. Despite having the full amount, the group refused to simply hand over the money to Gil-Su. Instead, they made a bold decision. They would call the police and expose him. That night, Cyan shared the critical information Young E had given him during their meeting. She had told him that Gil-Su was secretly running an illegal gambling den that specifically targeted underage students. The scam was designed to trap students into a cycle of addiction and debt. Every new user who registered on the site would be awarded an initial $50 bonus, which made it seem like an easy way to make fast money. At first, the students would start winning, receiving huge rewards to hook them in. But once they got comfortable, the gambling system would be manipulated by Gil-Su and his gang so that players began losing every time. As players kept losing, they eventually ran out of money. That's when Gil-Su's men would approach them with loan offers, pretending to help them while actually locking them into a never-ending debt cycle. This scam had already ruined countless students. They would give up everything they had: money, phones, jewelry, cars, gold bars, and even family heirlooms, just to repay the never-ending debts. Young E also revealed that Gil-soo stored all his valuables, including cash, drugs, and stolen goods, in a secure metal box hidden inside his office. With that knowledge, Cyan and his friends decided to alert the police, hoping to bring everything to an end. Later that day, after school, Gil-soo and his gang were waiting for Cyan and his friends. Suho bravely told them that he would meet Gil-soo alone, suggesting they talk about the gambling operation in private. His plan was to get inside Gil-soo's office and then secretly send the location to Cyan and the police. Once they had the location and evidence, the authorities could arrest Gil-soo on the spot. At first, Gil-soo was shocked that Suho knew about the illegal gambling den. Suho claimed he had learned everything from Young Ben's cousin, Subdae. With no way to deny it, and sensing Suho's confidence, Gil-soo reluctantly agreed to take him to the office. Before they left, Young E told Gil-soo she would stay back at school and wait for Bamuk and Cyan. Later, she met with Cyan and handed him the address of Gil-soo's office, not knowing that Suho was already on his way there and had learned the same address directly from Gil-soo himself. Meanwhile, Bamuk, worried for Suho's safety, decided to follow him in a taxi. Cyan stayed behind to verify if the address Young E had given was correct. At the same time, Subdae started questioning Young E, trying to gather more information about Cyan and what she might be planning. To his surprise, Young E confessed that she was sick of living under Gil-soo's control and had already made up her mind to report him to the police. She said she couldn't take the pressure anymore. Meanwhile, Suho reached Gil-soo's office and immediately texted the location to Cyan. It turned out to be the same address Young E had provided earlier. Once inside, Gil-soo, already suspicious, asked Suho to hand over his phone. Suho refused, and before he could react, Gil-soo struck him on the head with a heavy metal object, knocking him unconscious. Gil-soo now understood that Suho had called the police and began panicking. He grabbed all the valuables, drugs, and evidence from the metal box and fled the office. Shortly after, Bamuk arrived, unaware of what had happened. He saw Gil-soo trying to leave and, still thinking they were going to settle the debt, tried to hand him the money. But Gil-soo ignored him and dragged him away as he escaped. Cyan soon arrived at the location with the police, but by then, the place was empty. The police, not having an arrest warrant, called off the investigation. Frustrated and fearing the worst, Cyan climbed over the building wall and broke into the office. Inside, he saw blood on the floor. He feared it might belong to Suho. He tried calling his phone, but there was no answer. Even worse, the metal box was empty. Gil-soo had taken everything: money, evidence, and drugs. Meanwhile, Gil-soo had discovered that Subdae and Young E had betrayed him, helping Cyan behind his back. Enraged, he threatened Young E, saying that if they didn't meet him at a place called Mandong, he would sell her younger brother, Sunshine. Subdae, terrified for Sunshine, agreed to meet Gil-soo. Before leaving, he handed Young E his bank card and told her to use the money to hide in a hotel. But Young E didn't want Subdae to go alone. She asked Cyan to download a real-time tracking app so they could monitor each other's locations. Meanwhile, Gil-soo and his gang were waiting in Mandong. Not only had they summoned Subdae and Young E, but they had also captured Bamuk and Suho, holding them hostage. Cyan rushed to the location using the tracker, but when Gil-soo learned that Young E had betrayed him, he attacked Subdae, even though his arm was still injured. Subdae struggled to fight back. Young E tried to help, but was quickly restrained by Gil-soo's gang. Gil-soo then prepared to kill Suho and Bamuk. At the last moment, Subdae forced himself up, launching a desperate attack despite his injuries. He fought as hard as he could, but Gil-soo was still stronger and now had a knife. Just when things seemed hopeless, Young E struck Gil-soo on the head. But she wasn't strong enough. He got back up. Suddenly, police sirens filled the air, and Gil-soo's gang panicked. Cyan arrived and yelled at Gil-soo to surrender, claiming the building was now surrounded. But Gil-soo soon realized that Cyan had faked the sirens using a phone speaker. No real police were there, yet. An intense fight broke out. Subdae and Young E tried to escape, but were stopped. Then, just in time, actual police officers arrived on the scene. One team arrested the gang, while another chased after Gil-soo, who had managed to escape in the chaos. Cyan pursued him through the streets. When he finally caught up, they began fighting, but Cyan quickly realized he couldn't keep up. Gil-soo easily overpowered him. Just when things looked grim, Suho appeared and came to Cyan's rescue. A final battle erupted between Suho and Gil-soo. But Suho, being a trained MMA fighter, defeated Gil-soo after an intense fight. The police finally arrested the man who had corrupted countless students, running scams, pushing drugs, and trapping them in debt. After the incident, Subdae voluntarily surrendered to the police. Before being taken away, he told Young E and her brother Sunshine to escape the area and stay safe. Gil-soo's criminal case was handed over to a lawyer, who surprisingly turned out to be the assistant of Bamuk's father. The lawyer assured them he wouldn't inform Cyan's parents about the incident, but he would report everything to Bamuk's father, who would likely take the matter from there. Since Bamuk came from a highly respected and wealthy family, anyone who dared to harm him could face severe consequences. The lawyer handling the case, an assistant to Bamuk's powerful father, told him directly that he had permission to hit Gil-soo if he wanted to, even though they were inside a police station. But despite the opportunity, Bamuk refused. He didn't want to attack anyone. Gil-soo, however, couldn't resist taunting him. He mocked Bamuk, calling him the weakest among his friends. He claimed that Soo-ho and Cyan never even considered Bamuk to be a real friend, just someone tagging along. Meanwhile, Cyan stepped out of the police station and found Young-e waiting outside. She had come to apologize for everything to both him and Soo-ho. Later, the two of them visited Soo-ho at the hospital, where Cyan updated Soo-ho that Bamuk's father had decided to keep the entire Gil-soo case confidential. It appeared that the influential politician, Jean W., wanted full control over how things would be handled, especially with the media and public. Despite all this, Cyan and his friends didn't care about credit or recognition. What truly mattered to them was that Gil-soo and his gang were finally behind bars. Meanwhile, Bamuk's father covered all of Soo-ho's hospital expenses. It was then that Cyan learned the truth. Bamuk's father, Jean W., wasn't just wealthy. He was a highly respected and feared politician, wielding immense power. Still feeling guilty, Young-e followed Cyan to the hospital again to continue her apology to Soo-ho. As they sat together, she gently rested her head on Cyan's shoulder. In that quiet moment, she told him that they were now dating. It was a simple declaration, but it meant a lot to both of them. When Cyan returned home that night, however, he was overwhelmed with a deep sense of loneliness. No one at home even asked where he had been. The silence made him feel like he didn't matter. Longing for a sense of connection, Cyan went back to the hospital later that night and brought Soo-ho his favorite food. Soo-ho was surprised. It was the first time he had ever seen the usually cold and distant Cyan show such warmth and care. The gesture didn't go unnoticed. Meanwhile, at Bamuk's home, a very different scene was unfolding. His father was furious that Bamuk had gotten involved with the police. He was angry not just about the situation, but about the potential damage it could do to his reputation. In a brutal display of discipline, he beat Bamuk with a golf club, a cruel punishment that showed just how harsh and distant their relationship was. Back at school, Cyan and his classmates were being celebrated. They were treated like heroes for taking down Gil-soo and his gang. From that day forward, Cyan and his group grew even closer, vowing that they would never abandon each other, no matter what. It was around this time that Young-e told them she wanted to become their friend and that she would be moving in with Soo-ho. Soo-ho personally asked her if that was truly what she wanted. She confirmed, but not everyone was happy. Bamuk started feeling left out. With Young-e now spending so much time with the group, he felt like he was being pushed aside. His frustration deepened when he noticed that Soo-ho had followed Young-e on Instagram, but hadn't followed him back. Bamuk couldn't help but compare. Soo-ho had only known Young-e for one night, and yet he was connecting with her more than with Bamuk. It stung. Since Young-e joined them, Soo-ho had been talking to her more and spending less time with Bamuk. Slowly, Bamuk began to feel invisible, as if Young-e didn't even acknowledge his presence. The feeling grew heavier with each passing day, and as a result, he stopped enjoying spending time with the group. One night, when they all went to a karaoke bar, Bamuk was noticeably unhappy. He quietly left the room to buy drinks for himself, trying to cope with the emotional weight he was carrying. That same night, he ran into some students from his previous school, the ones he used to fight with. Even though the memories flooded back, he chose not to escalate anything. He kept the encounter to himself. When he returned to the karaoke room, he snapped at Young-e for picking up his phone when it rang. Bamuk had always hated being treated like he was not in control, and this moment, combined with his growing resentment, made everything worse. To make matters more tense, a group of bully students entered the karaoke room. They were surprised by Cyan's quiet demeanor and decided not to start anything. But they did warn Bamuk that they would be calling him later. Cyan didn't realize they were troublemakers. Bamuk hadn't told him anything about them. The next day, Bamuk was asleep in class, exhausted from everything. He was awakened by his classmates making noise. When he told them to be quiet, they laughed at him, claiming that he had become arrogant since he started hanging out with Cyan and Soo-ho. Bamuk lost his temper, angrily confronting them. When Soo-ho tried to calm him down, Bamuk shoved him away, shouting at him not to touch him. That incident marked the beginning of Bamuk's downward spiral. His mental health deteriorated rapidly. The bullying students who had resurfaced continued to call him every day, heightening his anxiety. He began skipping school and isolating himself, refusing to tell anyone what he was going through. Cyan and Soo-ho grew increasingly worried. Eventually, they decided to visit his house. When they arrived, they were shocked by the size and luxury of the place. It was the first time they truly understood how wealthy his family was. During the visit, Bamuk revealed a secret. He was adopted. His father had only taken him in after becoming a politician. He wasn't their biological child. Then he explained why he had been missing from school. The bullies from his past were back. They had started calling him again, demanding he meet them, reopening old wounds. This relentless harassment brought back memories of the physical abuse he had endured every day. It was this very trauma that had led him to transfer schools in the first place. Hearing this, Suho suggested they confront the bullies directly. That night, the three of them, Cyan, Suho, and Bamuk, went to a bar to meet them. Gathering every ounce of courage, Bamuk demanded an apology. At first, the bullies laughed at him, pretending they had always had a good relationship. But once Suho threatened them, their tone changed. They finally admitted what they had done and apologized, showing remorse. But then something snapped in Bamuk. He slapped one of them, then grabbed a microphone and tried to hit them again. Suho stepped in immediately, stopping him. He reminded Bamuk that they had come for an apology, not revenge. The bullies were left shocked by Bamuk's sudden rage. Before they left, Cyan issued one final warning. They were never to call Bamuk again. Afterward, tensions flared again, this time between Suho and Bamuk. Bamuk accused Suho of always acting superior, of treating him like an inferior, not a friend. Suho denied it and reminded Bamuk of all the times he had been there for him. But then Bamuk said something that crossed the line. He told Suho he could just pay him back for all his help. The room went silent. Cyan stepped in, trying to keep things from getting worse. Eventually, he let Bamuk leave on his own. Throughout all their time together, Bamuk had never gotten angry at Cyan. He had always respected him, but now he felt more conflicted than ever. As the days went by, the bullies kept calling, trying to track him down. One night, on his way home, Bamuk ran into Young Chan and Taeyeon. At the same time, the bullies spotted him from above. But Young Chan's gang, seeing an opportunity, chose to target the bullies instead. Since they were from an elite high school, the bullies were terrified. They had no choice but to hand over their money to avoid trouble. Bamuk stood nearby, watching, and then, suddenly, he attacked the leader of the bully group before running away. Young Chan and Taeyeon laughed, amused by what they had just seen. Bamuk had finally snapped, unleashing all his pent-up anger on those who had hurt him, insulted his father, and isolated him from his friends. After that, Bamuk joined Young Chan's gang. He began spending his nights drinking at clubs. His new friends adored him, not just for his company, but because he was willing to pay for everything. For the first time, Bamuk felt truly respected. He even followed all of them on Instagram, believing they were his real friends. He went as far as to unfollow Suho, cutting ties emotionally. The next day, Bamuk arrived late to school, having stayed out drinking all night. Cyan tried to talk to him, but he brushed him off, choosing instead to hang out with Young Chan's gang. They thanked Bamuk for covering their drink bills and hotel stays with the women they had been with. Clearly, Bamuk still had money left from selling his father's watch. Cyan noticed a disturbing change in Bamuk's behavior. He confronted him. At first, Bamuk denied anything was wrong. But eventually, he admitted that he was angry at Suho, that he felt Suho always looked down on him. After that, Bamuk fully immersed himself in his new social circle. He started frequenting clubs, attending wild parties, and distancing himself from his old friends. One night, they met up with young Ben and other students. Young Ben was delighted to see Bamuk and introduced him to several girls, boasting that Bamuk was the son of a powerful politician. The girls instantly took interest. Young Ben also introduced Bamuk to a skilled fighter from school named Weong. The group started talking about Suho, expressing deep resentment toward him. They were all tired of Suho's superiority complex. Young Ben, in particular, was eager for revenge. Meanwhile, Suho continued helping Cyan, even teaching him how to work as a delivery driver. But Cyan remained deeply worried about Bamuk. He believed that Young Chan's gang was only using Bamuk for his money and status. But Suho had a different view. He felt that Bamuk was the one using the gang, trying to fill a void, trying to gain something he had never truly felt. And so, the lines between loyalty and betrayal, between friendship and manipulation, continued to blur. The gang did whatever Bamuk asked of them. They treated him like a VIP, even expressing their desire to make him a well-known figure at school. Day by day, Bamuk grew closer to Young Chan's group. He felt genuinely accepted and respected by these new friends, something he had longed for. He even changed his seat in class just to sit closer to Young Chan and Taeyeon, clearly choosing them over his old circle. But while Bamuk embraced his new crowd, Cyan was deeply concerned. He had a sinking feeling that Bamuk wasn't a bad person at heart. He believed that Bamuk was only acting this way because he was hurting and lonely. Wanting to protect him, Cyan confronted Young Chan's group, demanding that they stay away from Bamuk and stop exploiting him for money. But the gang just laughed him off, saying that Bamuk gave them everything willingly. They claimed they didn't force him, he wanted to fit in. During lunch break, as students queued for food, Young Chan's gang barged in, cutting ahead of everyone in line. Suho, always standing up for what was right, was enraged. He confronted them and told them to follow the rules. But to his shock, Bamuk stood against him, defending Young Chan's actions. He outright refused to listen to Suho. Enraged and feeling betrayed, Suho slammed Bamuk to the ground in front of everyone. The cafeteria went silent. Cyan quickly intervened, telling Suho to let it go. But the damage was done. Humiliated and powerless, Bamuk stormed off, boiling with rage. Later, still fuming, he approached Young-chan and asked him to find someone he could pay to beat up Suho. Young-chan didn't hesitate. He suggested Wong, a friend of Young Bin's. They searched for videos of Wong online and were stunned by his fighting skills. Some even claimed he was good enough to join the UFC. Eventually, Bamuk met Wong in person. Without flinching, he offered him $1,000 to severely beat up Suho. He wanted the fight to happen on Saturday, Suho's birthday. Wong accepted the offer and left. After that, Taeyeon chimed in, telling a story about how Wong had previously defeated Suho in a competition. Young-chan was convinced that Wong would win again this time. They started planning a way to weaken Suho before the fight. As part of their scheme, they tampered with the brakes on Suho's motorcycle, the one he used for work. Their plan worked. Suho lost control while riding and crashed, injuring his leg. He now had a limp. Though he strongly suspected Bamuk was behind the accident, he didn't say anything to Cyan. Saturday arrived, Suho's birthday. Cyan and Young-e had planned everything to surprise him. Meanwhile, Bamuk kept trying to call Suho, asking him to meet up, but Suho ignored the calls. So Bamuk sent messages to Young-e instead, saying he wanted to give Suho a birthday gift and asked her to meet him, in secret. He told her not to tell anyone. Young-e agreed, unaware of his real intentions. When she arrived, Bamuk acted kind at first, but then a smirk crossed his face. His plan had succeeded. He had lured Young-e there to take her hostage, hoping to force Suho to meet him. Back at the birthday gathering, Cyan and Suho were waiting for Young-e, growing worried. Cyan accidentally saw Suho's phone and noticed messages from Bamuk. In them, Bamuk had shared an address and revealed that he had taken Young-e hostage. Alarmed, Cyan quickly replied, saying he would come instead, then deleted the messages from Suho's phone. He told Suho he was stepping out, but didn't reveal the truth. Cyan arrived alone at the address, holding a wrench. Everyone was shocked to see Cyan instead of Suho. As soon as he spotted Young-e, Cyan urged her to run. Then he faced off against Young-chan's gang, fighting them with the wrench. Meanwhile, Young-e managed to call the police. Young Bin was thrilled to see Cyan. He wanted revenge. But once again, he couldn't defeat him. Then Cyan picked up a crowbar, ready to take on all of them. Suddenly, Wong appeared and attacked Cyan. Despite wielding a weapon, Cyan couldn't hold his own against Wong's superior strength and speed. Sensing an opportunity, Young Bin tried to attack Cyan again. But Bamuk intervened, saying Cyan had nothing to do with it. Still, Young Bin didn't care. He said it wasn't just about Suho, it was personal. Eventually, Cyan, already weakened, was brutally beaten by Young Bin and his gang. Bamuk couldn't take it anymore. He turned his back and walked away, guilt consuming him. Meanwhile, Wong told Bamuk to reschedule the fight with Suho and demanded payment, claiming he had already beaten one person. But Bamuk never asked him to attack Cyan. Suddenly, the sound of police sirens filled the air. Everyone fled the scene, leaving Cyan unconscious and bleeding. Back home, Suho had fallen asleep waiting for his friends. The party never happened. Cyan was taken to the hospital, and Young-e told the police everything. When Cyan woke up, he lied, saying he had been alone and the injuries were from an accident. He also asked Young-e to keep it secret from Suho. Later, Cyan called Bamuk and warned him to stop whatever he was doing. Because of the injuries, Cyan had to remain in the hospital. Lying in bed, he began remembering a childhood argument between his parents. He had learned back then that his father never wanted him, a truth that had shaped his cold, distant relationship with him. Even though they lived under the same roof now, Cyan still resented his father. He didn't tell his father the truth about the incident. He claimed he had just fallen down the stairs. But his father saw through the lie and scolded him for being reckless. Finally, Cyan snapped, asking him since when he had ever cared about him. Meanwhile, back at home, Bamuk was tormented by guilt. Because of him, Cyan had taken a beating. Bamuk isolated himself, refusing to attend school. His father, determined to get him away from trouble, assigned a guard to watch over him and made plans to transfer him to a school in the Philippines. Back at school, Suho returned to normal life, but he could feel that something was wrong. Cyan had disappeared, and now Bamuk was gone too. Suho tried calling Cyan, who finally answered, claiming he was absent due to family issues. Suho then asked Young-e why Cyan never came back to the birthday party, but she avoided the question and just apologized. Still feeling uneasy, Suho visited Cyan's house, but no one was home. As he walked back, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. Eventually, with no other leads, Suho approached Young-chan and Taeyeon to ask about Bamuk's whereabouts. They claimed they didn't know and hadn't been able to contact him either. Suho mentioned he needed to talk to Bamuk about fixing his damaged motorcycle. At that, Young-chan's group froze, shocked that Suho knew Bamuk was responsible. They asked him how he had figured it out. Meanwhile, Young-chan's group openly discussed Cyan's absence, revealing they knew it was because of the beating that night. Suho overheard this, and in a fit of rage, attacked Young-chan's group and demanded they tell him the truth. Unable to withstand the pain, Young-chan broke and confessed everything. Furious, Suho went to Young-e and asked where Cyan was being treated. She told him that Cyan would be home that night. Suho went to Cyan's house. When he saw him, He didn't reveal that he knew the truth. Cyan hid his injured hand, and Suho pretended not to notice. Instead, he gently reminded Cyan that they had exams coming up and encouraged him to come to school. Meanwhile, at home, Bamuk's father exploded in anger after learning what his son had done. He told Bamuk he was ashamed of him and ordered him never to acknowledge him publicly as his father again. Having had enough, Bamuk decided to run away. That night, he packed up and left the house. His father's assistant tried to stop him, but he ignored him and got into a taxi. The assistant quickly took a photo of the taxi's license plate to track him. While in the taxi, Bamuk saw multiple missed calls from his friends. He also saw a message from Suho. At that moment, Suho was confronting young Ben, punishing him and demanding to know where Bamuk was. But young Ben swore he didn't know. Suddenly, Suho received a phone call from Bamuk, who asked him to meet at a gym. At the same time, Bamuk also called Wong, instructing him to prepare for a fight with Suho. When Suho arrived at the gym, he saw Young-chan, Taihan, Bamuk, and the others already waiting for him. Suho had actually come with peaceful intentions. He wanted to apologize to Bamuk. He told him that if Bamuk was angry, he should take it out on him, not on innocent people. But Bamuk rejected his apology coldly. Frustrated and disappointed, Suho began to lose his temper. At that moment, Wong stepped forward and challenged Suho to a fight in the boxing ring. Suho was surprised to see him. After all, they had fought before in a competition, and Suho had won that time. Still, he accepted the challenge but asked for a minute to warm up. However, instead of preparing for the match, Suho used that minute to beat up everyone else in the room, clearing the floor of any distractions. Once he was done, the real fight between Suho and Wong began. Wong's friends began recording the match, swearing revenge for his previous loss. At first, the two fighters were evenly matched, both skilled and aggressive. But Wong knew about Suho's injured leg from the motorcycle accident. So he focused his attacks on Suho's left side, making it increasingly difficult for him to defend or retaliate. Despite the pain, Suho held his ground and eventually knocked Wong down with a powerful strike. But just as things seemed to turn in Suho's favor, Taihan cheated by grabbing Suho's leg and pulling it, distracting him. Taking advantage of the moment, Wong landed a hard kick to Suho's head, knocking him to the ground. Bamuk and the others then seized the opportunity and began to relentlessly beat up Suho. Young-chan and Taihan, who had long resented Suho, joined in with full force. The beating escalated quickly. Suddenly, Bamuk's father's assistant and lawyer arrived at the gym. They were there to take Bamuk home. Panic spread among the group when they realized that Suho wasn't breathing. Terrified, they all quickly fled the scene, except for Young-chan and Taihan, who were stopped by Bamuk's lawyer. The lawyer demanded they testify before the police, ensuring the situation would be handled in a way that would protect Bamuk. That night, Bamuk broke down in tears, filled with guilt and fear, believing Suho had died because of what he had done. Meanwhile, people started searching for Suho, realizing no one had heard from him since that night. Cyan and Young-e suspected that Suho might have taken revenge on Young-chan's gang, but they couldn't find him anywhere. Eventually, Bamuk's lawyer stepped in to contain the situation. He ordered everyone involved, Young-chan, Taihan, and Wong, to stick to a fabricated story. According to the new version of events, they had all been exercising together, and Suho had suddenly passed out while taking a break. To erase any evidence, they deleted the video Wong had recorded and even removed the gym's CCTV footage. The lawyer went further. He pretended to be Suho and messaged Cyan, saying Suho was fine and busy working out. Meanwhile, Bamuk received yet another punishment from his father. Furious and ashamed, his father threatened to kill him once he finished school in the Philippines and returned. But Bamuk didn't care about the threats anymore. He was only worried about Suho's condition. The next day, school exams were held. Cyan attended, his first time back since the incident. But he was distracted and anxious because there had still been no news about Suho. Suho didn't show up to school, and Cyan could barely concentrate on his exam. He answered most questions incorrectly, but for once, he didn't care. His mind was only on Suho. After finishing his paper, Cyan received a call from Young-e. She told him that Suho was alive but hospitalized, in critical condition and in a coma. That night, when the gang fled, they had assumed he was dead, but he had merely fallen into a coma and was taken to the hospital for emergency care. Upon hearing this, Cyan rushed to the hospital. When he arrived, he found only Suho's grandmother in the room, sitting beside Suho's unconscious body. Her eyes were filled with grief. Seeing his best friend lying there, pale and motionless, Cyan couldn't stop his tears. Meanwhile, Bamuk had locked himself in his room. His lawyer came in to inform him that Suho was still alive, but in a coma. There was still hope. However, the lawyer warned him that if the truth came out, Suho could be in more danger and Bamuk's father's political reputation would be destroyed. So they had to keep everything secret. The following day, Cyan went to Jiang High School, where young Ben had recently transferred. As soon as young Ben arrived in class, Cyan stormed in, grabbed him, and slammed his head against the desk multiple times. He was furious, seeking answers. In a fit of rage, Cyan stabbed Young Bin's shoulder with a pin, demanding to know if Bamuk was behind the attack on Suho. But Young Bin claimed he didn't know. His fingers had been broken in his earlier fight with Suho, so he hadn't even been there that night. Before leaving, Young Bin told Cyan that he only knew bits and pieces of the incident from a video Wong had sent him. Cyan asked for the video. Watching it, he finally saw the full truth, everything that happened to Suho in the gym that night. Even though Young Bin hadn't participated directly, Cyan beat him up before storming off to find Wong. When Cyan found Wong, he attacked him with an iron rod. But since Wong was a trained fighter, he anticipated Cyan's moves and fought back effectively. It became a brutal fight. Wong mocked Cyan, calling him weak and unskilled. But Cyan refused to give up. He recalled the techniques Suho had taught him, and while he hadn't mastered them, he started to fight smarter. Eventually, Cyan used Wong's strength against him. He dodged a punch, causing Wong to accidentally strike a barbell, injuring his own hand. Cyan then grabbed that barbell and smashed it against Wong's foot. As Wong winced in pain, trying to justify his actions that night, Cyan struck his foot again, breaking it. Meanwhile, Bamuk and his father were on their way to his school to officially announce his transfer abroad. But Yongi arrived just in time, demanding that Bamuk take responsibility for what he had done to Suho. Instead of apologizing, Bamuk blamed her. He told Yongi that everything happened because she entered their lives. Before her, he and his friends had been happy. But once she joined them, he had felt pushed out, invisible. At Bamuk's school, the teachers were already expecting him and his father, fully aware of who his father was. Bamuk sat for his exam, while his father pretended to inquire about the student who had been injured. The teachers told him that a student had collapsed while exercising at the gym. The father was relieved, knowing the real story was still hidden. While exams were underway, Cyan stormed into the school, carrying a fire extinguisher. His uniform was stained with blood, shocking everyone. Without warning, Cyan attacked Taihan, smashing him with the extinguisher. Young-chan tried to help, but was also struck on the head and knocked unconscious. Cyan continued to beat Taihan until he lay motionless. Then, he walked up to Bamuk. Instead of fear, Bamuk felt guilt. He broke down and told Cyan, "If beating me up will make you feel better, do it." But Cyan couldn't bring himself to attack him. Deep down, he still saw Bamuk as a friend. Both of them broke into tears. Cyan left the room without hitting him. The entire school was terrified. Teachers tried to stop him, but Cyan let out his rage on the classroom windows, smashing them in frustration. He was furious that the school had covered up everything while Suho lay in a coma. After the outburst, Cyan went straight to the hospital to visit Suho. Sitting beside him, he imagined him waking up, scolding Cyan for overreacting, and both of them apologizing for not protecting each other. Eventually, Bamuk was transferred to a school in the Philippines, while Suho remained in a coma. Yongi made a tough decision to distance herself from both boys, blaming herself for the collapse of their friendship. At first, Cyan was going to be sent to a juvenile center for his actions. But when Bamuk's father saw the video, revealing the truth of what happened to Suho, he dropped all charges. However, he used his influence to ensure no school in Seoul would accept Cyan. Only one school agreed, Jeong High School, a low-ranked institution known for hosting troubled kids. Tattoos weren't even banned there. Cyan was transferred to Jeong High School, accompanied by both his father and mother. His father told him, "What happened wasn't entirely your fault." Inside the classroom, Cyan introduced himself. As he took his seat, a local gang leader tried to provoke him. But Cyan said nothing. When the student stared at him, Cyan stared back coldly. The boy instantly backed down, intimidated by Cyan's presence. And that brings Season 1 to an end. Season 2 is coming soon, so don't forget to subscribe, tap the bell icon, and like the video to help it reach more people. Thanks for watching.